I never thought betrayal could come from something as ridiculous as a reptile. But that's exactly where this whole mess began. It started on a Tuesday night, after one of the worst days it had in months. I came home from work exhausted, my nerves already frayed, only to find the apartment living room unusually warm and humid. At first, I thought maybe the thermostat had been bumped. But then I saw the massive glass terrarium sitting right in the middle of the coffee table, basking lamps blazing like miniature suns, and inside, a 6-foot boa constrictor lazily coiled around a log. I froze. My roommate, Chris, popped his head out of the kitchen, grinning like this was normal. Surprise! Meet Apollo. Isn't he beautiful? My heart stopped. He knew I had a severe phobia of snakes. It told him that when we first moved in together. I thought he respected it. I thought it was one of those roommate boundaries that would never be crossed. And yet here he was, looking at me as though I should be thrilled about a giant predator parked in the middle of our shared space. The worst part? He hadn't even warned me. I swallowed hard, fighting the rising panic. You didn't even ask me. You know I can't handle snakes. He shrugged, completely unfazed. Relax. Hayes harmless. Besides, I pay half the rent. I should be allowed to have a pet if I want to. I didn't sleep that night. Every creak in the apartment, every shadow, every flicker of movement made my chest tighten. The thought of that snake just a few feet away gnawed at me. By morning, my exhaustion outweighed my fear. I made a choice one I knew would spark a war. I moved Apollo into my bedroom. It wasn't because I wanted him there, God, no. But at least in my room, I could control the space, lock the door, keep the terrarium contained. The living room was our shared area, and every time I walked through it, I felt like prey. So I dragged the heavy glass tank into my room, set it against the far wall, and locked the door behind me. When Chris came home and found Apollo missing, all hell broke loose. "Are you insane?" he shouted, pounding on my door. "You can't just steal my snake." "He's not gone," I snapped back. "He's in my room. I couldn't take him being out in the open like that. You disrespected me first, Chris. You knew how I felt." He laughed, but it wasn't out of humor, it was sharp, mocking, full of venom. "So, what? You're going to punish me by holding my pet hostage. Do you have any idea how messed up that is?" The word hostage stung. I hadn't thought of it that way, but in his eyes, that's exactly what I had done. For days, the apartment turned into a Cold War zone. We barely spoke. He'd glare at me whenever we crossed paths, muttering under his breath about control freaks and psychos. I kept my bedroom locked at all times, the hum of Apollo's heating lamp filling the silence like a constant reminder of my decision. But here's the twist: the betrayal wasn't mine. It was his. Because while I had moved Apollo to feel safe, Chris had already crossed the line by bringing him into our home without my consent, had known my limits and ignored them. And worse, I later discovered he hadn't even been honest about Apollo's harmless nature. One night, while Chris was out, I overheard a phone call he'd left on speaker. His friend asked about Apollo, and Chris bragged, "Yeah, he's a constrictor, strong enough to crush a rabbit in minutes. I'm trying to train him up." My blood ran cold. He had lied to me. Lied to my face about the snake being safe, all while knowing it had the power to kill. That's when the betrayal cut deepest, not from the reptile itself, but from the person I had trusted to share a home with. So I ask you, aitah for moving his reptile into my bedroom? Or was he the one who betrayed me first by placing me in danger and lying about it? Because what started as a battle over boundaries was now a war over trust. And trust, once shattered, is something you can never cage again. The longer Apollo stayed in my room, the heavier the tension grew. At first, I thought Chris would calm down after a few days, that maybe he'd see my side of things. Instead, his anger evolved into something sharper, quieter, and far more dangerous. He stopped talking to me directly. Instead, he started leaving notes, scrawled messages taped to my door. "You're crossing a line. He's my snake, not yours. You can't keep him forever." I tried ignoring them, but the hostility seeped into every corner of our apartment. Every time I stepped into the kitchen, I felt his eyes drilling into my back. He'd slam cupboards a little harder, laugh to himself a little louder, whisper things under his breath that I couldn't always catch. And then he started turning our friends against me. I found out one night when a mutual friend, Jenna, invited me for drinks. I thought maybe she wanted to help me escape the suffocating apartment energy, but as soon as we sat down, she leaned forward with a judgmental frown. "Chris told me what you did," she said. "You kidnapped his snake. Locked it in your room. What the hell is wrong with you?" I felt my face burn. It wasn't like that. He brought Apollo into the living room without even telling me. He knows I'm terrified of snakes. He didn't care. She cut me off, shaking her head. "You don't move someone's pet without permission. That's messed up. If you had a dog or a cat, would you want someone stealing it?" Her words hit hard. I hadn't realized Chris was already framing me as the villain in this story. And worse, people were believing him. That night, I came home to find Apollo's terrarium shifted closer to my bed. I knew I hadn't moved it. My stomach dropped. Chris had a spare key to my room. When I confronted him, he didn't deny it. He smirked. "Maybe now you'll think twice before playing games with me." Apollo deserves better than being locked away like some dirty secret. It wasn't about the snake anymore. It was about control. I realized then that this wasn't just about a pet, this was about betrayal layered upon betrayal. He had ignored my boundaries, lied about Apollo's danger, painted me as unstable to our friends, and now he was invading the only space I had left. Something inside me snapped. I started documenting everything, the notes, the texts, the way he moved Apollo without permission. I reached out to the landlord, explained the situation, and found out something Chris hadn't told me: our lease didn't even allow reptiles over a certain size. Apollo wasn't just an unwelcome guest, he was against the rules. When I brought this up to Chris, he exploded. "You think you can use paperwork to win? You think you're going to get rid of him just like that? You're pathetic." His words stung, but underneath his rage, I saw fear. He knew I finally had leverage. That night, I barely slept. Apollo's terrarium hummed in the darkness, the faint glow of the heat lamp painting eerie shadows across my walls. I kept thinking about how betrayal works. It doesn't usually come in one big, dramatic blow. It comes in small, calculated choices. Chris had made his, choosing his obsession with Apollo over our friendship, choosing lies over honesty, intimidation over compromise. And I had made mine, choosing to fight back. The next morning, I called animal control. When they arrived, Chris lost it completely. He screamed at me, calling me a traitor, a coward, every name he could think of. But as the officers explained the lease violation and prepared to remove Apollo, something in me shifted. For the first time in weeks, I felt a strange sense of relief. Chris packed up and left a few days later, slamming the door so hard the walls shook. He left behind broken dishes, trash scattered across the living room, and a friendship I knew could never be repaired. And me? I was left with the echo of his betrayal and the question that still haunts me: was I really the one who crossed the line first? Or was I just reclaiming control in a situation where someone I trusted had already betrayed me? Because betrayal isn't always about love or loyalty. Sometimes it's about the people closest to you choosing themselves at your expense and leaving you to pick up the pieces.